Hello and good morning also from my side. Hi Stephan, it's great to have you on stage with me today. Yep. Really cool. We have, I think, a couple of interesting aspects about ALM to talk about and think about today. But before we do that, let me also congratulate the team for what you've set up here. It's so great to have people back in person. Tim already mentioned his own personal experience. I'm super happy. Everyone who knows me knows that I'm all for physical interaction. You know, the last years have taught us you can communicate, you can cooperate, you can collaborate remotely, but the real magic really happens when you have people together in the room. So let's do some magic here. 4 days of content and a little bit of fun in between. So I'm anticipating, you know, there's going to be magic around these days. Stephan, you are not only the Chief Digital Officer of Bosch Automotive, but you're a former colleague of SAP, also a good friend from all these years. And I think we will hear from him also very interesting aspects. And in a way, Stephan even shaped, together with some other customers, some of the aspects and how we changed our strategy in recent years. So first, let's take a look at the title of the presentation, and you may already be scratching your head and thinking, like, what's he talking about? Rightful place, ALM. Isn't ALM actually pretty well defined in the industry, what it does? And so what I would like to offer is a little bit probably a thought-provoking thing. Let's take a look at traditional application lifecycle management, the way we looked at it in recent years, or decades, so to say. So really mostly was on a high level at least. We looked at process implementation, so basically implementing processes, pieces of software. Then we looked at how we operate them, how we monitor them. Of course, there's an element of change in that as well, and then attached to that, obviously, exception management. So what are we doing if something happens there, some signal coming up, some problem coming up, how do we respond, the auto-respond, and so on. So you all know that much, much better than I do. So that's, on a high level, the traditional perspective we had on ALM. And with the complexity of solutions in SAP, then platforms like SAP Solution Manager, which all of you know very well, were born to address these aspects, and we are now at release 7.2, so it's been quite a lively and active platform. And when you have these things and you work on them, then something happens. And the thing that happened is people like Stephan Brandt knocking at our door and basically saying, it ain't good enough. We need a lot more. And that's your slide, Stephan.
Thank you, Andreas. Very nice to be back on an SAP stage. I've been doing this for more than 20 years. Now I'm on the customer side, on your side. I'm not only here to make sure that he's not losing his phone again.
Inside joke.
Inside joke. I'm here because I feel what we are discussing and what we are trying to develop is of interest for all of you here. I'm with Bosch Mobility Solutions, that's the automotive division. It's still, I spare you all the details about Bosch. If you drive a car, if you have power tools or have an e-bike, then you're our customer. We are still number one, tier one supplier worldwide, despite the crisis. And you know what automotive is challenged with, not just the geopolitical situation, but also technology transformation, moving from combustion engine to electric vehicles to fuel cell technologies, end. The market is not good currently. I urge you all, buy more cars, because the number of sold cars has a direct impact on our business. That's very simple. I won't read through all those numbers, but that is the main reason why I reached out to Andreas and to all the friends at SAP to say, we need you on our side, because we thought that the current challenges in the market are not challenging enough. So in parallel, we started the largest IT transformation that Bosch has ever done. And automotive, with roughly 60% of the Bosch business and 3/4 of the SAP users, has the biggest stake in this. And for us, this whole transformation is not just to move from R3 to S4. If it would just be that, our IT guys would be capable of doing so. We have SAP R3 in place since 1992. I think we are one of the largest installations worldwide in terms of users, just in automotive, more than 140,000 people working with SAP. Why so many? Because we are using SAP in breadth and depth. Yeah? So all our plants are working with SAP. They have production-related functionality in our ERP environment, more than 160 plants. You can do the math. The main challenge for us is not only to be ready in time. The challenge is we will never really be done. And that is why we said the typical approach won't work for us, because the crisis also has its advantages, because we can use this time now to really start working and optimizing our processes again. And that is where it starts for us, not from the technical perspective. It's the business processes that matter. And when I joined Bosch in 2019 and I was asked, what is your perspective on our system landscape? My reaction to our board was, it's a mess. Why? Because it's one of the most modified application landscapes I have seen. And it's not just the number of systems. 15, 14 productive systems doesn't sound that much, right? But each and every R3 system is one dedicated business unit. And one business unit alone is like a small company in itself. So Bosch Automotive is like 10 business units under one umbrella, which are all working together because the components usually have contributions from all units. So our processes go through the entire system landscape across different plants, different business units before the truck then goes to our customers. And that is the challenge we are facing, being ready and done by 2030 and rolling out S4, our new designed template, in more than 160 plants. And since this is also not challenging enough, we also decided to reorganize our entire organization, touching roughly 50% of our employees, which is something we do in parallel then.
Thank you, Stephan. And if you now probably believe, say, yeah, well, Bosch is like this huge corporation and they're kind of special and they have a unique place. I can tell you that this feedback is consistent with many, many feedbacks that we are hearing. A few weeks back, Stephan and I were together at the Automotive Council. This time it was at BMW in Munich with all of the key players in the world's automotive industry. I tell you, the feedback is consistent. All of them are, in one way or the other, looking at exactly the same challenge. If you look out in SAP's installed base, we have thousands, and not a small thousand, but a big thousand. Thousands of customers out there that still need to transform their solution landscapes in the coming years. We have announced the extended maintenance periods for our ECC solution. So these are, mainstream maintenance was extended until 2027, and extended maintenance is available until 2030, which means that 2030, you need to be physically off your system. Not even if you pay a lot of money, there is going to be any more maintenance, security patches, all of these things that are related to this. If you look at the complexity of many of these thousands of customers out there, this is a massive undertaking they have to plan. And so any advisory board, any event, any customer meeting these days is actually dominated by these sort of discussions. How do I go from where I am today to where I need to be in a few years down the road. We will talk about this a little bit longer, but all that feedback essentially led us to rethinking how we have to change our application lifecycle management philosophy, our strategy. And essentially, what we said is we need to be able to manage the entire life cycle a lot better than what we were used to in recent years. And there's a lot of elements added to that. So it's not only what we've been discussing, the challenges, it is the cloud and hybrid world that dominates this strategy as well, because we have to account for the fundamental changes that happen in architecture, in the components that make up business processes in years to come. And so this slide, again, on a rather high level, explains how we want to orchestrate the entire solution lifecycle a lot more complete, a lot more comprehensive than we did in the past. And then, shortly before the Automotive Council in Munich a few weeks back, I showed this slide to Stephan and said, that's what I'm going to show and going to talk about and so on. And he said, there's something missing. And so he insisted we are adding this arrow around it. Why was that, Stephan?
I said it in the beginning in a way that you're never really done. Yeah? So this journey we started is something which needs to be continuously. And I need to touch on two things. One is, what do we do in terms of process optimization and standardization? Currently, we are in the process to develop a new template for the entire OE business. OE business is our tier 1 hardware software business, but we also need to extend it by software and service business. But this will be okay for start of rollout in 2024, but then you have continuous changes, right? You're adapting new solutions, looking at new transportation management, looking at new planning tools, looking at extended warehouse management, decentralized, centralized, end. So the template and the system landscape will continuously evolve as we are in rollout. Rollout for us means starting 2024, 25, we will roll out 25 to 30 plants per year. Now, if you do the math and you are in 2026, then you have to roll back what you have evolved in your template into already 50 plants. So you have challenges in both directions, right? So for us, this whole journey means that we also organize ourselves in how we do continuous process design and standardization and then handing it over for implementation, but also to see how we can roll out and roll back what we are doing. And to make it a bit even more challenging, and this is also something we reach out to SAP to help us here, is on one side, our strategy is very strict. So we tell the business, we standardize. And that's already a challenge, right? If we would not be in a crisis, every plant manager would tell me off and say, I do my business and I have a benefit, so I want to have my process. Now I can tell him you can't afford it, which makes life sometimes a bit easier. But that should not be the argument, right? Standardization means on a global level to have benefits for the entire business unit and not just for a local optimum in a plant. But standardization also means you limit it in a way, the way of how to build innovations. Yeah? Because there's a good reason why plants or business unit want to deviate from a standard, because they permanently are under pressure to optimize their own operations. So that's where business technology platform comes into place in terms of our hybrid architecture. A highly standardized core with our future S4 system, and an environment where we have a cloud platform from SAP, and where we are adapting new ways of developing, like low coding, in order to be faster in bringing innovations to our internal customers. But this, again, needs to be managed. And it's one thing to manage a core on-prem S4 system, but it's another challenge to manage an environment where business units together with IT can actually continuously build innovations and applications. And our processes don't stop at the border of an application. They have to run through, right? And that's why I said all this is true in terms of extending the portfolio of the services, but we have to make sure that we have this closed loop, because once I standardize, I start looking at what I have achieved, I go into the optimization cycle, I implement again and I start again, right? And that process needs to be continuous. And that's what we call the process value chain. Process design, build, implement, operate, and then optimize.
Yeah, thanks, Stephan. So for us in SAP, of course, we are looking not only in my own organization, a lot more holistically at customers. So this is now, let's say, the philosophy, the methodology, a little bit looking already at the platform that will support this, what are the core elements of it. But of course, we have to help our customers along this way as well beyond the ALM aspect or the platform aspect of it. And what this allows us to do now, particularly if we have this in a cloud-based ALM platform, where we, given the permission of our customers, have access to a lot of the information in there, a lot easier than in traditional on-prem ALM platforms, we can find whole new ways of how we collaborate and engage with our customers along the way. A lot of data is created there. A lot of insights are available to us at SAP that we didn't get so easy or not at all before. So a whole new way of how we are collaborating with our customers, but also traditional functions, mainstream functions like the product support teams that are doing millions of transactions with our customers. They can now rely, if we do this consequently, with a lot more contextual data than we were able to in the past. And last, and certainly not least, even though we don't like it, every now and then situations at customers become so critical that our mission control center, our mission critical support, our escalation teams, back office teams, production down managers, duty managers, and so on, have to get engaged with customers. They will also greatly benefit from the insights such a comprehensive model will give us. Now I can see some of your eyes scratching your head, like, okay, I get it, but what about this rightful place? The headline of the session. It just seems like an extended methodology or something like that. Well, if we think about what we're really doing here, and if you listened to Stephan's words, why we are doing it, I think by now you would probably start to agree with me that this is a lot more responsibility for such a platform, for ALM, for the entire methodology and strategy, than it used to be before. I would claim that ALM is already transitioning in record speed to become the key part of what I would call a business transformation suite. And maybe if you closely looked at the little boxes on the slide before, let me go back to this one, then maybe you have spotted one box in there that we traditionally completely ignored in ALM. Do you know which one that is? It's the data migration one. This is something we've pretty much left exclusively to our partners. Yes, we had a few professional services engagements, but generally this is a space we have completely withdrawn in recent years, and now it is right there back in the middle. But let's come back to this thought of the business transformation suite. So we said the order is a lot taller if we look at what we really need to do than traditional ALM. And then we not only looked at the what is it we actually need to do, but we also started questioning the how we are doing it. Because let's face it, we tried to be very fast. We think we were quite thought-leading with platforms like SAP Solution Manager, but sometimes we didn't make it exactly easy to all of you to install it, to configure it, to use it. And there was a lot of, let's call it, proprietary technology in there. So a few fundamental principles that we pledged we would apply to our new philosophy are a whole new aspect of openness of the platform, but also trying to use things and make it easier for the customers that are using it to reuse certain things. So I'm talking about, say, modeling of processes, Originally, the idea was we just have whatever graphical engine starting to model our processes. We've made some bold decisions here. One being that in the future, in SAP Cloud ALM, we will use SAP Signavio, the engine of SAP Signavio, to model the processes. So this will be made available at no additional cost to everyone using SAP Cloud ALM. Another thing is that we bundled in Tricentis. So we negotiated with Tricentis that you can do test automation, automatically test everything you are implementing, again, at no additional charge bundled in. And the beauty of this is for our customers, because we will only have a single persistency, it will be the one Signavio and not a copy of it or anything like that, which means you have modeled your process. It is just one more step. Essentially, you have to get your usage rights, of course, you have to get a commercial license for that, but you can then go directly to business process improvement, business process insights, and so on, without having to reset up your processes. And I think, Stephan, again, thinking of the discussions we had a while ago, this is something that's very dear to your charter at Bosch.
Yes, especially when it comes to making sure that you have not only a tool chain, but you have the organization in place to work with it. I have to take one step back before I touch on the tool chain and the components which you're showing here. We released a very simple strategy for our transformation. It's very simple. I called it my mantra because I repeat it again and again. It's simply saying we want to standardize in terms of industry best practices, in terms of SAP standard. But we also need to make sure that we document it right, not like in the past, because only if I do a proper documentation, I can continuously automate my processes and I can do the optimization by applying process mining and other technologies. So that's a very simple strategy. Everyone in my organization understands this. Behind this, of course, you need to have the organizations, the process experts, the governance, the people who actually can do what we just described, process modeling, for example. You need people who understand order to cash for automotive or produce to stock going down to the manufacturing layer. But those people also want to have an environment which is highly integrated. I can't do my process modeling in one tool and my documentation in another tool, and then I have my technical documentation in the solution manager, and from the solution manager I want to then build my models for process mining or even have the input as a development pipeline, so to say, for automation in other tools. Yeah? And from that, then you go into test automation topics and you go into your rollout activities and continuous template development. If you do this in different tools, it's a mess. Yeah? So what we wish from Andreas and from the team sitting here, yeah, is I want to manage the entire application landscape in one environment. And it should not make a difference if it's S4 on-prem and BTP or any cloud application from SAP or not SAP. And I want to manage my in-house development. We are doing a lot of in-house development, like many customers. The SAP doesn't always like it, but we have applications in-house with 40, 50,000 users on this. But that also needs to be integrated in terms of the processes, right? So one challenge for us at Bosch and in Mobility Solutions, we are okay and we're good, is to have the organization in place who can actually manage this whole process value chain. But we also need to have an integrated tool chain which supports this. And so that picture here for me makes perfect sense, but just my wish is make sure it's a seamless user experience for those people who have to work with.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Stephan. And coming back to that one special box that I just mentioned, the one that I've personally found most disruptive or surprising in there, that all of a sudden data migration is again in the picture. Also here, and you will know in the next session, you will hear a lot more about this because Mark and Steffi, they will go a level deeper into what we are just discussing here. But just to show you that we are even looking at business data transformation with the so-called BTC, the Business Transformation Center, rather holistically as well. Again, I'm not going to steal Steffi's thunder. Here she has a lot more to say about this, but also same philosophy applying here, a lot of openness for our partner community. They bring in a lot of specific knowledge, industry, domain expertise. We will make sure they can use it. On the other hand, we have listened to the feedback of our customers who said, I have a zoo of choices out there. Help me guide that. And we just started to fundamentally claim that as an enterprise software provider, we should be taking responsibility and accountability to help our customers get their data from where they are today to where we want them to be, where they want to be. And I'm coming to the next slide already, Stephan. This is a slide that's a little bit specific to larger rollouts like Bosch and other customers are taking them, but just to share with you a little bit on where this leads. So there is the next step going beyond that. And Stephan, I think, touched on that aspect as well already. But the big question all of these thousands of customers have is, how do I manage my rollout? Some of them are relatively straightforward, but many of them are also extremely complex. And again, there's a funny one, because we were debating back and forth the title of that slide. And I remember when Stephan said, you know what, just put on it, we will never be done. So, Stephan, this is your slide.
Yes, in our case, that's certainly true. I mean, there's not one recipe for everyone here. Even at Bosch, our different divisions have different approaches. At Mobility Solutions, we said we follow this lean greenfield approach by really redesigning our processes, but not completely eliminating our heritage, because our business is as it is. But we also have a solution landscape, a system landscape, which you simply can't technical migrate. It's our IT department and the SAP consultants said, brownfield, with that, just forget it. It won't work. Yeah? For BSH, our white goods division, they did a brownfield approach, technical migration, and they're done. Fine. So there's not one recipe. But if you really take that route to say you want to redesign your processes, you want to build a brand new template, which takes time, and then you go into a large-scale rollout, there is one dominant question. Where are the people to do that? Yeah? And even though we are a pretty large organization currently with hundreds of people being engaged in those transformation activities, we already see when we go into rollout, we have a gap, and the gap is substantial. And the answer can't be, especially not in times of crisis, just to say, close the gap by hiring people, or close the gap by purchasing consultants, which would also be new for us. We are doing most of our IT projects actually completely with in-house capacities. That's a different story. But even with those people, it won't work. So what we need in order to successful in our rollout is we need pretty good methodologies to tackle that challenge of doing a number of plants which has never been done before. At least not at Bosch. And when I ask Andreas and the team, do you have any other customer who rolled out 25, 30 plants per year? The answer is, I have to see. Right? So we have to have a methodology and a support in place that makes this extremely automated and seamless in terms of preparation, data cleansing, pre-live checks, enabling, training, post-live activities, so go live and stay live is extremely important in our case, yeah, because you go wave by wave. And that's why our normal ways of doing rollouts won't work. And that is something also our organization has to accept, because we are also very self-confident, because a new plant, we do a new plant. Yeah? It's not rocket science, but we haven't, at Bosch at least, no one has done a rollout of this scale. And that's why I think we need new ways of approaching this. And whatever comes out of this, if we reduce what we need to do in terms of size and complexity, still the tools and the methodologies potentially can be applied by anyone here.
Thank you, Stephan. So let's get back to where we started. I want to bring us back a little bit to this headline where it said, the rightful place of ALM. So we spoke now about how this is evolving, that there will be fundamental elements of it, that it's essentially powering business transformations in our customers going forward. But there is even more to it if we look at the typical deployment modes that we see. Last week, we had the annual congress of the DSAG, the German SAP user group, which also had a large delegation of the Americas SAP user group right there. And I can tell you that it is on top of their agenda as well of what we are discussing here. Everyone is talking about these things, but there is more, because we looked at the latest surveys and statistics of all of these users, all of the SAP customers behind these user groups, and an overwhelming percentage of these customers basically shared with us their plans of where they go. And the truth is, many of them will stay hybrid for the foreseeable future. There is an increasing share of cloud-only, cloud-centric customers, but the major stake is going to be hybrid customers for years to come. Hybrid still contains cloud. And in a cloud world, we are talking about yet another element. I'm sure you all have heard the word in one way or the other, which is customer success. It's a buzzword that is mostly associated to the cloud world. What does it mean in a cloud context? It means that you basically help customers to successfully adopt a solution, make sure that customers are using the solution. Customer success management has aspects of continuously working with customers so they get more business values out of their solutions. And frankly speaking, for the vendor themselves, software provider, customer success has an internal perspective for us as well, because obviously we want to upsell, cross-sell into these customers as well. If you ask me to describe customer success in one single word, I would always summarize it in adoption. That's the one word behind customer success. And everything we are talking about in this comprehensive model here is how to successfully go live, which is the basis for adoption, how to successfully use it, which is the continuation of adoption, the expansion of adoption, and then with all these iteration cycles that also Stephan spoke about, is gaining additional value, which is the massive increase of adoption over time. So when I say we need to talk about the rightful place of ALM, I would claim that ALM is at the brink of becoming the very foundation of customers' successful transformation, business transformation, and the technical foundation of customer success. And this, dear ALM friends, is a lot more than we ever thought about ALM to be. So that's why the headline today was chosen as what's the rightful place of ALM. And I'm sure you will have 4 days packed with content to dig into all of these aspects that make up for that. And I wish you wonderful 4 days. Make the magic happen that we're physically together here in this room. Stephan, thank you very much for joining me on stage. Have a great event.